It's another example of elected public officials being cowards, being rewarded for compliance and obedience, and being obsessed with political correctness. It has nothing to do with political correctness to allow drug-addicted people to live on the streets, creating unhealthy environments, creating danger risks, safety risks. You're living in very expensive property. You're paying huge property tax, but you couldn't have your kid walk 2 blocks because that kid's got to walk through a park where there's a bunch of homeless people who are known bad, but many of them have serious mental health issues, so they don't really know what they're doing. They're shooting up drugs, right? They're leaving their needles around. And what are elected officials? They're scared of being labeled by a self-interest group as breaching their rights. With a goddamn city to run. That means everybody has to sacrifice something. But you're not entitled to just put up a tent, smoke drugs, and throw your needles out there. You're not entitled to light fires to keep warm, right? Or to burn your meth on the back door of an apartment building where there's a light. The other day, it burned my ass because I was in Calgary and I'm driving down this street in the downtown core, which Calgary has one of the biggest police forces in Canada. And I respect the police and what they have to do. And I know that the police don't really want to be dealing day after day with the same 50 homeless people, except that they're smashing the windows of the train station. They're going on the free rail station. So everybody is uncomfortable because there's somebody who stinks, passed out on drugs there. They're not policing the safety of our public institutions. But I'm driving down the city and I had to stop because in Calgary they have photo radar. And there's kind of a nursery school playground that's hidden in the back. And I didn't know that the speed limit was 30. But I saw this vehicle take a picture of my license plate. And there was a cop there. So I pulled over because I used to be a prosecutor. I want to talk to him and figure out what's going on in the city. I said, can I ask you a question, sir? Why are you giving me a speeding ticket at 7:30 at night? He goes, well, this is a playground zone, sir, and the speed limit is 30. And that's okay. Let's just forget for a second that it's 7:30. So there's no school there and there's no children over there. I go, why do you think you have to give me a ticket? I've seen you set up here multiple times. He goes, it's to protect the children. I said, officer, do you mind just for a second walking 5 steps to me and looking over here? He walked and I said, see that bench in the playground? There's a homeless guy right there burning some sort of pipe for drugs. I'm like, why the fuck aren't you arresting him? He goes, well, we have policy not to arrest the homeless because, we just don't want to process them. I'm like, you just told me you were here for the safety of children. There's somebody burning a meth pipe or something over there on the freaking playground. Want to know why? They make money off of the photo radar, right? Our police officers are being used as revenue generators when their job is to protect us. And if the job sucks, too bad. That's what you get paid for. Arrest them for using drugs in a playground, put them into cells and process them. If you don't like it, too bad. They shouldn't be on our streets if they're doing it. That requires courage. The leadership of the police force doesn't have the courage, and the leadership at city council doesn't have the courage. Somebody needs to step up. Everybody knows this is an issue, and business owners have to withhold property tax. Money talks, and if they think that they can make money by getting parking tickets and speeding tickets and not protect us from a plague of homeless people who pose health and security risks, we need to hold them accountable. And it's time we get together to do it. And so I'm doing it for a couple of downtown core associations where we're getting the property owners together. We're going to withhold the property tax, put it into a trust account, and put it in front of the courts and demand that City Hall do something and demand that the police do something. And if you have to cut back on parking ticket bylaw enforcement people to put police officers there, let's deal with the drugs, the needles, the vandalism, the broken windows before we give goddamn parking tickets. Here's another example. I own an Airbnb in a nice neighborhood in the downtown core. And don't want to mention any names, but this airliner that has the name of our country lost my luggage. Surprise, surprise. So I needed it because I had to get to a suit to go to work in the morning. And so they're delivering it to me at 7 in the morning. It's a cold winter day. They can't stop on the main street. So they're going around the back to work to drop it off so I can take it up. I go out the back, I try to open the door and I can't open it. I just hear somebody go, just making these weird noises. And I'm like, get away from the door, I gotta open it. And I can see on the map that there's a vehicle right out there. So I actually have to go back out the front door, come around and leaning up against the emergency exit door are 4 homeless people with a fire burning their drugs. And it's actually like a fire that's about 18 inches or 2 feet high, so they can keep warm. And they're burning their drugs on the emergency exit beside my building, which could have caught fire. And the guy delivering my luggage is like, I'm not comfortable coming close. But the police wouldn't come. They sent like a street patrol person who helps people. And if I had had my camera, which I should have, 2 of the guys, and this is no word of a lie, 2 of the guys weren't wearing pants. One had underwear, one had nothing. He was sitting on some garbage bags. They were burning their pants for the heat to heat up the drugs and themselves, which, just as a guy who was in the military and did some survival training, burning your clothes is not a long-term solution to survive a cold winter night, right? But allowing them to stand on the streets and light fires beside buildings is going to kill a lot of people, and somebody has to be held accountable. And we're just not seeing the leadership we need from city council. And maybe this will piss off some special interest groups. But if any other segment of society was lighting a fire beside a business and smoking drugs, burning drugs, students, right? They would be arrested. But because they're homeless, they're allowed to stay there. And what policymakers need to understand, once they put on their big boy and big girl pants and make tough decisions and stop caring about what Twitter mobs say to them about special interests, because they have to protect that there's probably only 50 people who occupy 90% of the problems, right? But as long as you make it easy for them to stay and there's no consequence, they're going to stay. There was a recent book from somebody in Los Angeles who interviewed 5,000 homeless people, drug addicted homeless people, over the course of many years, and was trying to figure out what's the solution. And he said over the 5-year period that he interviewed them, he's only aware of 2 who got out of the situation. So what we're doing right now isn't actually helping them. It's actually perpetuating the problem by pretending to ignore it and saying, well, it's your human right to be homeless and shit on the streets and break glass windows when you're upset or you're having a drug fit and almost set buildings on fire. You are not doing anything to help society by being a coward and sitting on your hands because a special interest group will say you're not respecting their rights. We have cities that need to thrive. By lifting up the quality of cities, we can get more money to help people get into rehab. Take them outside of the city. Fascinating study on addiction that some of our public service officials need to review. War in Vietnam was brutal. Long periods of boredom, very low morale, bad leadership. People didn't want to be there, they were drafted. Heroin use went to the roof because it was available. I can't remember what the exact number was in the amount of heroin use or addicts. When they came back to the US, the study showed that less than 5 or 10% of people continued to use heroin. That's a huge success rate compared to what's happening right now in our streets. The difference they found was that they were taken out of the environment that caused them to use heroin. What we do in our society is somebody is on the streets, they're addicted. Our system doesn't have the budget for some reason to take them out into rehab, but has the budget to spend tens of thousands of dollars dealing with them on the streets. They get so bad from the drug use that they end up having to go to the hospital because their organs fail. And then we spend $250,000 keeping them alive for 3 weeks until they die. Why not take that $250,000 and invest in rehab? Impose on their civil liberties. If you shit on the streets, maybe you've lost some civil liberties. Take them far away from a city for 90 days where there's no drugs and try and get them off of the drugs because nobody is getting better. But to expand on the Vietnam example, what we'll do is incarcerate them, send them to like a counseling session. Even if they go to a 2-week rehab, where do they go? Right back to where the drugs are. Right back to the environment where the addiction started, right? And so we should learn from that Vietnam experience. If somebody is an addict, you have to take them away from the circumstances that created the addiction, the supply, the peer pressure, and all of that. Take them away. We're not doing anything to deal with it. And it's destroying our downtown core, right? It's putting children at risk. It's putting women at risk. It's moving people away from this infrastructure that was once so vibrant, safe, and a joy to each city. And the only way to deal with it with elected officials, it's through cash. So I think we have to start withholding property tax.